This is what people had to do before 2007.
I'm dropping my stuff!
What's up guys, Sugar Z here, and this is the iPhone 2G, originally released in 2007.
And we are calling it iPhone.
This is iPhone OS 1.0. We're just gonna see how far we've come throughout the years. So let's go ahead and take a look at the design first. This is the most premium phone I've ever seen in 2007. I mean, seriously, this was really good looking. It felt like you were holding something that was actually worth $800 to $700, without a doubt. Now, this plastic thing on the bottom, that was actually what do I even call it? This was actually the networks. So this was actually the antenna for, networks, 2G networks, edge networks, Wi-Fi, and stuff like that. The camera, on the other hand, that wasn't really, the best thing in the world. The camera was, what do I even call this? Garbage. So, let's take a photo of this iPhone 5 box real quick. It didn't even have autofocus, so you'd have to, try and just hope that it took the photo. And low light shots, not really the best. So if we just take a look, it didn't. Whatever. I guess we'll look at it like this. So pretty grainy, but it was enough back in the day, and you can see the stutter, the lag getting in there. This phone also had, I would call this headphone gate or something. That's my nickname for it. So basically, literally the only headphones that would work with this phone were the Apple bundled earpods that would come with them. Or not even the earpods, they're just headphones. They didn't even come with earpods. They came with these really old looking earphones that weren't even high quality. But it did come with a mic, so that was cool. But if you wanted to use the headphone jack with other headphones, you'd have to get an adapter for it, which is pretty bad. But they just wanted you to use the headphones that came with it, and they fixed this in the iPhone 3G, but not in this one. So this is literally the only flaw that the original iPhone had. The SIM card slot was actually a normal SIM card. It wasn't a micro or a nano. The lock button. And all the buttons are black, which are, that's okay, I guess. It did have a mute switch, so if you wanted to, if you're like in class and you were holding an iPhone and you needed to mute it, it would actually be muted, and you would still get vibrations, but you'd still get vibrations, but you wouldn't actually hear the sound, which was pretty good. So like notifications would actually just be vibrations, and phone calls would just be like vibrate. All that stuff. So, yeah, and it also still had that 30-pin connector that we used until the 4S. Looking at the front, this was a proximity sensor, so if you were talking to someone and you put the phone on your ear, this actually turned off the display, so if you were, like, talking and your earlobe touched the screen, you wouldn't actually, like, accidentally touch the end call button or the speaker button or something like that. So that was the proximity sensor. Now, this whole button was pretty useful, and people went nuts for this thing. So people couldn't believe there was only one button on a phone. The only thing it would do it would bring you back to your home screen, and people went nuts for this thing. Back in the day, we had these Blackberries, Nokias, Motorola Zs, those popular companies that had like a screen that was like a quarter of the size, and had these keypads on the bottom, and they were there whether you wanted it or not. So what Apple did, it would come up whenever you actually needed it, and the only button that would be there was the home button, and literally the only thing it would do is, let's say you were in Notes, you click the home button, and you're back to where you were, and you can go to a different app. So that was cool, and obviously the lock button, it locks your phone, and if you want to unlock it, click side to unlock. This did actually have a passcode option, so if you wanted to, keep kids away from your iPhone and you needed to keep a good password and you turned off your phone, you had the passcode option, which was convenient for people who needed passcodes to their phones. So let's go ahead and take a look at the software of this phone. This was the first iPhone OS the iPhone 2G had. It was very, very basic. You had no notification center. You had no control center. There was no spotlight search. There wasn't even pages. There was no app store. There was no iTunes store. You had to import music manually from iTunes to go into the iPod, which was pretty cool. There was no pages. You couldn't wiggle apps. You couldn't move them. You couldn't do anything. There's no multitasking. There was no, you couldn't double click to go to the phone app. It was very basic. I mean, literally, not a lot of people were thinking about multitasking or anything like that. So what else about this phone stood out? Well, not only do you have the ability to call people, but you actually had the ability to check your mail on a device this small. You had a portable mail. You could look at your emails while you were like at the coffee shop or something. You could check your emails, and there was nothing like this back in the day. There was web browsers, but they were terrible on Blackberries and all those other phones. Safari was actually really, really good, and nowadays it just looks like a glitchy mess. You could listen to music on your phone. I mean, really, what? Who would have ever thought that you could listen to music on a phone? So back in the day, you actually had to hold an iPod, and you had to hold, and you had to have a phone, and you also needed to bring your computer with you for the web browser. And yes, again, all the phones back in the day did have web browsers, but they were really, really, really bad. And I can't even explain how bad they were because they were terrible and they were really hard to use. But Safari was a step ahead of everything, and it made everyone's life so much easier. So, I mean, that was basically the big features this had. Basically, on the dock, that's what people really focused on. You also had SMS texting, so if you wanted to text someone but not really call them, the app was actually called Text instead of Messages, and it had an SMS text on the app to tell you this was only SMS texting. You also had a calendar, so if you wanted to, put dates down and you wanted to remind yourself that on this day, I have to go to my uncle's birthday party or something like that. Wait, what? Also, you had the photos and the camera, and yeah, the photos were really, really bad, but it was something if you wanted to take a picture and you just keep that on your phone. I mean, that was pretty cool. You had YouTube pre-installed, so if you wanted to watch YouTube videos, and nowadays YouTube is really, really big, you had an infinite amount of videos on your phone that you could watch. Like, that's amazing. You could look at the stocks, which really this hasn't changed up until iOS 12 it has, but really this hasn't changed too much. You had navigation now. This was really, really cool. It had Google Maps pre-installed, so you don't have to go and get a third-party one, but this was really useful. And when Apple Maps was released, lots of people were upset. And you can tell that this is a really old version of Google Maps because it has the old Google logo, and that's how old it is. So the weather app, this gave you the weather. It was pretty cool. Clock app, you could set alarms. So like instead of having an alarm clock, you can literally just set alarms for yourself. You could put the world clock over here. You could put a stopwatch. So if you wanted to check, how far you can cup stack, how fast you could do it, you could use your phone for that. You can put alarms, timers. So if you were doing your homework, you wanted to put like an hour long timer, then that was pretty cool. Let's just take a look at how the web browser, yeah, this is not really looking good. So, the web pages don't load well. Let's just check how Apple's website loads up before we end off this video. I mean, not that bad. Up to this day, it still loads up pretty quick. Yep. Pretty exciting stuff. Okay, why does it say learn more IOE? Yep. You could tell how obsolete this browser is. Oh my god. But this worked back in the day. All the web pages were optimized for the iPhone 2G. Nowadays, they don't really even take a look at this anymore. So guys, that is the iPhone 2G. Happy birthday, iPhone. This was 11-year anniversary for the original iPhone's release. This changed a lot of people's lives. It made everyone's lives easier. This was basically 6 devices in one device. So that you had the computer, you had an iPod, you had a phone, you had a GPS, you had the TV, which is check the weather, just maybe. You had a stopwatch, you had a calculator. Oh, that's 7 devices. You had 7 devices. That's calculator and clock. You had 7 devices in one phone. I mean, the only flaw with this phone was the price. I know they took that down, but back when it was released, I'm pretty sure it was like $700 to $800. But in reality, it was actually pretty much worth it. And I'm surprised that Apple lowered the price later in its lifespan. But anyways, guys, that's going to be pretty much it for this video. If you did enjoy, hit the like button down below. Happy birthday, iPhone OS 1.0. Pretty fun time to look at this again. It's pretty impressive. Anyways, guys, I'll see you next time. Sugar Z, signing out.